Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you. I love being here. This is going to be fun.
I know it's going to be fun. You are a passionate guide for those ready to create a life they truly love. And that speaks so strongly to my heart. So I know we're going to have a great chat here today. And I'd love for you to start with sharing with the listeners just who you are and what your story is.
Okay. Well, I'm Carrie West, and I've overcome so many obstacles and challenges in my life. And to now see the beautiful life I've created that I've manifested is is remarkable. Is remarkable. Every day I look around and go, wow, how did I do this? And I figured out how I did it and wrote my books. And so now I want to bring it to the world because if I can do it, believe me, anybody can.
Absolutely. So let's dig into your story a little bit then. What was your life like, and how did you shape it into this life that you have now?
I was born into very humble beginnings. My parents rejected me from day one, only they wouldn't put me up for adoption. That was not a thing you did. So they didn't feed me, they barely changed my diapers, and I almost died a couple times as a baby. So, how I made it through that, I have no idea. But I didn't have a close relationship. I didn't know how to form close relationships because if you can't form them with your first family, then it's really difficult to learn that later in life. When my dad died when I was 24, that just sent me off the deep end. I was already struggling, but his death really shook me because my dad never really talked to me. But on the day he died, I didn't know he was going to die. He said, "You know, I love you, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay." 20 minutes later, he was dead. So I couldn't even talk it through with him. I couldn't figure it out. What a terrible thing to do. You're exiting the planet, and just before you do, you're going to drop this bomb on me because all I ever wanted from you my whole life was that you loved me, and now you're saying it, and then you go. So hit rock bottom, hit rock bottom. And, you know, my life became drinking and living on nachos, lost a lot of weight, really hit rock bottom. And then I said, if I'm going to figure this out, if I'm going to stay alive and figure this out, I have to go, I have to figure it out. So I tried everything. I tried spiritual work. I tried talking to the priest at the church. I tried metaphysics. I tried personal development, personal growth, and all of it. I took it all in. And I was cynical. Oh my God. I thought all of it was crap. I didn't believe a word anybody said to me because I was so angry and I was in so much pain and so lost. And I couldn't form great friendships or relationships. And so, by some stroke of genius, I got accepted in film school. And in the middle of preparing for one of our film projects, we're talking about the characters and we're talking about the hero's journey and how you have challenges that forge you so that you can meet the final test and win and become the person you're supposed to be. And I went, uh-oh, my life's a story. It's a crappy story, but it's a story. And I said, I'm going to get to work. And I took apart who my characters were. Because, see, I'd always loved stories. Stories were so important to me as a child. I stayed alive for most nights. The most nights I fell asleep telling myself a story that my real parents were looking for me. And when they found me, I would have a beautiful home and clothes that were mine, no more hand-me-downs. And I'd get to have hamburgers. Yay, I love hamburgers. When I was old enough to write, I started writing all these stories down. So, film school, seeing the characters, and I just took it all apart. And I started to understand my parents and their story and how it wasn't that they were bad people, they just had wrong information. They didn't know how to be parents. They weren't raised in a generation where you have kids because you want to build a family. You had kids because that was the rule book they were given. You grow up, you go to school, you graduate from school, you get married, you have kids, you get the house, you get the cars, you retire, you die. That was the prescriptive model, right?
hmm
That's
Yeah.
what a lot of people of that generation did. So it wasn't that they were evil, they just didn't have a better story anyway. So I forgave them. And in fact, felt a lot of compassion for them because I understood their story. I understood my mom's mental health challenges. I understood her background and her story and what her parents' story was that impacted her. And it's this generational story that we're given from their parents to your parents. I mean, we all do it. Think about how you cook your meals and how you say, "I love this meal. My mother made it all the time when I was a little kid, so I still make it today." There's all these stories that are given to us. So I just started tearing apart all these stories, and I decided I could rewrite them, and I did.
That's a really interesting perspective to see yourself as almost the author, but like you aren't the author of their stories, but I guess to see yourself as the reader of their story. You kind of have a separate detachment from it. It's just a
Hmm.
story. So you're separating yourself from the experience. And it sounds like it completely shifted your perspective on your whole life looking back.
And see, perspective is such a critical part of storytelling.
Mhm.
Depending on who tells the story, you will have a different view. Think about two people are standing on a corner waiting for a light to change. And all of a sudden, this car goes flying through, breakneck speed. One person on the corner says, "What an idiot, they're going to hurt somebody." And the other person said, "Oh, I hope they're okay. Nobody would drive like that unless they had an emergency."
Mm, yeah,
Same event, two different perspectives.
yeah.
You said something was really important. I took myself out of the emotional connection to it all. Then I could observe who my parents were. And that's not an easy thing to do because you're engaged with these people. You are energetically and emotionally connected to them. That's why blame is such a horrible thing to get caught up in. When you start blaming everybody for your situation, which is an easy thing to do, if my parents would have done X, I wouldn't be doing Y. You see it in courtrooms all the time where people say, "I had a crappy childhood. No wonder I'm an abusive and murderous fiend." Okay. Blame your parents. I mean, my parents weren't good, but I decided that if I was going to be happy, I had to forgive them and I had to forge my own path. I had to become the hero of my story. I had to become the author.
And with that, you're putting intention into your life now.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's what I'm passionate about. I would love everybody in the world to really get you can take back ownership of your life. You can take back authorship of your life.
I always love elements of play. And to me, this sounds like a really playful way to kind of get to dissect your life, right? If you're looking
Yeah.
at it like a story, and
Yeah.
then you can see the different narratives. You can see how the different pieces are connecting together. You can see how somebody else is holding on to their own version of a story, therefore playing out the events in their life, like a
Yes.
ripple effect for good or bad.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I loved how you said, what if the biggest block to abundance isn't your mindset, but your story? So that's exactly what we're talking about here, because so many people nowadays are learning about, oh, I just had to change my mindset and everything's going to get better, especially in the manifestation world. But you're challenging, what if you were to change your story or
Yes.
rewrite your story? Is that what you're saying? Because you can't really go back and change the story, but I guess you can change how your story is continuing.
You change how your story continues, but you see the old story from new eyes.
Ooh.
When you have a different perspective, like when I understood that my mother didn't try to force me into marriage at 18 because she thought I needed to be married, she was coming from her perspective that women needed husbands to take care of them. And I decided that didn't fit for me. She wasn't trying to say I was incompetent. She was projecting her story onto me.
Mm.
She was projecting that women don't earn money in the family, that women were supposed to be the homemakers and the men were supposed to go out and earn money. And that was a huge part for me, that earning my own money and not depending on somebody else. Now, remember, I never had many people I could depend on as a child, so I was pretty independent. In fact, my mom used to call me the black sheep, which she did to try to shame me and control me, but now I love it. I love that I was the black sheep of the family, that I didn't fit into what she wanted me to do. But she only wanted me to do these things because, and we've all heard this, I just don't want you to be disappointed. I want you to see what life is really like. And from from where I'm at now, I can say, don't you think that there's many perspectives that life can be? You were only offering one.
Right.
You didn't offer me choices. So I'm going to go out and make my own choices. And it's the same with money. Money is one of the most storied process in the world right now. Everybody has a money story. And it
Mm.
affects everything. It affects your health, it affects your relationships, it affects your career, it affects your own view of who you think you are. Because we have all this stuff around what money is. Money means you're great. If you don't have money, it means you're a loser. If you only have this amount of money, it means that. You know, the whole question of affordability for housing, everything that's headlines every day. So you
Yeah.
can't escape this whole feeling that money has total power and control over your life.
Yeah, money is a big one right now. And you touch on stories, and it makes me think of all the people out there that are feeling like lack. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough money at the end of the month after we pay for our groceries, after we pay for certain things. Meanwhile, the other piece of that story is you're in the US, I'm in Canada. Our governments right now are printing more money than they have ever done in history. So it's not that there's a lack of money in the world if you are looking at what is actually happening behind what's causing everything to go out of whack. So it's two totally different perspectives, right? What story are you listening to,
Yes,
and how is that
yes.
shaping your life?
And see, when I stopped chasing money, money came to me.
Mm,
When I stopped worrying about it and I just said, money is money. I'm tired of me thinking there's something wrong with me if I don't have enough, or guilty for having too much, because from those very humble beginnings, I now live in a beautiful home in Santa Barbara, California, and I have this strong relationship that I never dated until my 50s, and now all of a sudden I've been with this guy for 15 years. This is crazy. I have so much love and abundance in my life, and the abundance isn't just about money, it's about the love and the security and the safety and
mhm.
everything that I have that I didn't have as a child. That when I realized that my worrying about money, I don't have enough now, and I refuse to feel guilty for what we have now. This is a life I created and designed for myself, and take this as an opportunity to say, if Carrie can do it, I can too. Because believe me, I'm the most cynical, doubtful, questioning person on the planet. I challenge anybody to be worse than me. I really do. And and here what I've manifested and allowed was because I let it all go. I let it go of all those stories that said I couldn't, I shouldn't, I wouldn't, all of them that hold you back. And
Yeah.
they're running constantly, by the way. You may not hear them, but that tape loop is on constant run.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by this whole conversation because you are challenging the whole, oh, you just have to run around with a positive mindset. You're saying you're a cynical person. You have these stories playing, yet you are choosing to not listen to them or choosing to detach yourself and go, oh, okay, that's a story. I can choose to accept or reject this story. And here's what I want to create.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, what you said was really important because who wants to sit down and do personal development? I certainly don't. I don't want to do personal growth work. I don't want to sit there and examine my beliefs of why I feel like a bad person. But when I can sit in the audience and watch my life unfold as a stage, on the stage as a play, then I step out of it. When you can step out even 10 feet and observe what you're doing and observe the life that's unfolding, and then you can say, if I was going to write that story, how would I want that character to be? Hmm. Then you can become that character.
Yeah.
I know it sounds ridiculous on in some level, but it really isn't. When you really understand that you're in charge and you can wake up every day. I used to say, when I worked in the industry, every day when you go onto the film set, the first thing they do every day is say, where are today's rewrites? So no matter where you are in the filming, you change dialogue, you change direction, you may even change the wardrobe that you wear. You may get a character who you thought was secondary and bring them up to a primary character. So you're changing it constantly. And I think that's what really impacted me was when I saw how they rewrite stories. And when you see them being created and then you see the finished product on the screen, that's so incredibly empowering because you know that every piece of that was thought out and changed, and they did rewrites throughout the whole thing. And you may get an actor come in and say, I don't think my character would say those things. It doesn't sound like it rolls off the tongue. It's a real iterative process and it's real engaging. Well, why can't we do that with our own lives?
Yeah. I love the power in that. I'm one who's always like, if you don't like something, allow yourself permission to pivot into something else. So why not take that all the way down to the little nuances?
Yeah.
What you're having for breakfast, what you're wearing today, what you say, how you're treating other people, all the little things. Yes, I often refer to it as the big pieces of your life, but you are writing your own story every breath you take in every moment.
Yes. Yes. And here's the other thing is human beings are not comfortable with change. And they're not comfortable with doing some things differently. You know where you're going to get your coffee in the morning. You know where you're going to have for lunch. You know how you drive to work. You know how you run your life. You know what you go to the dry cleaner. By the way, I always get frustrated that I ran the dishwasher yesterday. Why do I have to run it again today? These things in life are crazy. So, but we know we have things we have to do. So staying on automatic pilot, we don't have to think about things anymore, right? That's fine if you want to drive to work the same way all the time. But if you take it a step further and realize that you have the same conversations with your friends all the time, you have the same conversations with your partners, your children, whatever your life circumstances, and that's because it's easy. It's on automatic pilot. You don't have to think about it. But when you start rewriting something, you have to think about it. I just made a decision last week that as much as I reshuffle my life all the time, I made the decision that I was going to reshuffle it again. And instead of doing my afternoon workout, I was going to do the morning workout. Now, I'm not always a great morning person. It doesn't always work. So I thought, you're an idiot. You're not a morning person. Why are you changing this to the morning? And it's like, because I want to experiment. I want to see how it fits for me.
Hmm.
So I have fun with it. And not everybody wants to do that, and that's okay. You have to find out what works for you. But if you're used to having a sandwich for lunch every day, try having a salad or soup. I promise you, you're not going to like it the first. Oh, I don't. I want my sandwich. I'm so used to. I'm craving my sandwich. Well, try a salad. Oh, I did this with one client, and she was just so upset with me because why couldn't she have her sandwich? It's like, well, you can. I'm just offering a suggestion of how you could get out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
how you could practice a rewrite, a simple rewrite like rewriting your lunch menu.
Yeah, so it doesn't even have to be something big, but we're creatures of habit. That's uncomfortable. And you're firing different pathways in your brain when you're now doing something different. And that opens up new potential and possibilities in other areas of your life.
Yeah, and it's very informative. It's very informative. Like I said, I had to really acknowledge that what a crazy person you are. You're not a morning person. Now you're going to get up earlier to do your workout routine. I don't know.
Mhm.
Before coffee? Eesh. You know, okay. I realized it shifted my mindset. I was getting so many more things done, and I've got two more books coming out, so I really have to focus on getting a lot of activities done. So it was really nuts. But
The it,
but it was effective.
yeah. Yeah, just those little things. And I've heard this now from multiple people in the last month. So I'm trying to take it to heart and think, okay, maybe this is a sign from the universe because when I start getting these little synchronicities and hearing things on repeat, I'm like, I need to pay attention to this. So I feel like I need to shake something up in my life here in the near future. So I'm going to figure out what that's going to be.
Yes, I invite you to just shake up something really innocuous. Like I said, changing a lunch menu, driving to work a different way. If you're used to taking the highway, take back roads. And then get angry when you're stuck in traffic. See what it does. See what it does, and it'll start showing you your level of commitment to the familiar. Because
Yeah.
the scariest thing is the unknown. And anytime you change, it's unknown.
Yeah. I feel like this is the perfect lead into my favorite question of the show, which is what is your biggest piece of advice for someone to go out and truly create a life they love?
Practice doing the unfamiliar. That'll get you an awareness because really the first thing to do is become aware. Become aware of what it is what are the patterns you're repeating? What is really holding you back? And if you're brave enough and you have really good, true, honest friends, ask them. Ask them if you could see one thing that I do on repeat all the time, that you roll your eyes at me every time I do it, what would that be? If you're brave enough and if your friends are honest enough, because believe me, you know this, everybody listening knows this. You have that friend that they call you all the time and they say the same thing over and over. And then you hang up and you think, good Lord, I wish they'd stop dating people like that, or I wish they'd get another job. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Well, guess what? You do too. No, I learned a long time ago. I don't. I told my husband, it's like, I know I'm perfect if you could only be like me. And he just rolls his eyes at me. So I know when someone's rolling their eyes, you've hit that line of BS, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. This has been a fun conversation. I'd love for you to share with the listeners what you've got coming up, where listeners can reach out and connect with you.
oh my gosh, go to my website, carriekcwest.com. That's CarrieKCWEST.com. I am promoting my new system, the Life Rewrite system, that has tons of videos and shows you how, in the comfort of your home, you can start to explore some of the things we talked about today. And I am right now ready. This is the first day. I waited till tax day here in the US to do this that I am launching it today. And so the first 100 subscribers are the founder subscribers, and they are locked in, guaranteed the price for life. And you get so many benefits. You get free books, you get free videos, you get access to all my stuff. I just want everybody to take advantage of this. I've changed so many lives just by having people look through a new set of glasses so you can see from a different perspective.
I love that. I will be sure to link that all in the show notes so people can click through and access that. And thank
Wonderful.
you so much for joining me on the show today and having this fun conversation.
I want to have more of these because to have this space to talk about how to really have fun when you're making changes in your life. And
Yeah.
please, everybody, be cynical about it. Question everything.
All right, we'll sign off on that note.